Today's lecture, Soul Cycle, A Journey into Reincarnation and Beyond, is presented by Dr. Delbert Blair. Dr. Blair is the director of the Metacenter. If you'd like additional copies or audio or video tapes, monatomic gold products, magnets, diodes, products for stress, energy, stamina, and more, please contact the Metacenter.
All of you for arriving and being in presence at the Metacenter for Saturday, January the 20th. This is, of course, 2001, and our third session already that we've brought into the millennium. Metaphysics, of course, has been a subject that has pretty much been at the forefront of almost everything we have done. It's just that it's now beginning to be recognized for the true subject that it is. I have stated and will reinforce that almost everything metaphysical has a truth in it if it's been well researched. The point is that we have not wanted to live with metaphysical truths, and these have been replaced with lies, which have become truth, and therein lies one of our problems. Another one of our problems on the planet is that we are leaving what is called the Piscian age. The Piscian age was for the believers, the faithful, the followers, the religious, the people who wanted peace, but only if peace was what everybody else wanted too. War, only if war was what everybody else wanted too. And the point was, again, in many cases, the people did not agree. We've left the time for faithful following, for believing just because it's there, and we've entered into, not entering into, but have entered into the Aquarian age. This is for the mind expanders, those who want not only reasons, but want to also seek for themselves a higher truth. It's those who seek expanded truth, if you will, the pace setters. And both are still incarnate on this particular planet, and therein lies one of the problems. We've only got about 1,000, but therein lies one big one. Another problem on this planet is race. We can't do anything for worrying about how a person looks or who a person's mother and father was, and so on and so forth. And we have a third problem now, hypocrisy. And that one, I think, just surfaced a few days ago with Reverend Jesse Jackson. That is so ridiculous, I almost don't want to deal with it, but before this is over, we will deal with that too. Remember one thing, here was a soul abandoned who rose to the heights. No one wanted him. And now he's being accused of not wanting someone else, which he stated verbally he did want somebody else. But that whole thing, that at this time to me is so ludicrous, not worth touching, but the press is playing it up. And it did serve one purpose, and that is that it stopped him from heading up a very strong protest, which would have been covered had he been there at the inauguration after the selection of George W. Bush. But this is fitting because it is part of what we call soul cycles. In fact, when we now look at soul cycles, I think you will see consciously a whole reason for all the happenings that are going on, and possibly even some truths that may resonate within your consciousness or within your soul. Those that are soulless will find nothing that I'm going to say of relevancy. Those that have souls will find that I may be going to strike home. And I'm only striking home through the course of study that is called metaphysical consciousness. And so this is how I start now what is called soul cycles. There has been a lot of talk, believers and non-believers, about the idea of reincarnation. And I'd like to just break that down. I was going to go to a blackboard, but the blackboard does not show or listen to the audience. This is going to be audio tape. So therefore, I'm going to have you mentally expand and paint the picture on your own mental blackboards. It simply means, again, reincarnation, or carne, carnal, the flesh. And of course, if you redo something, it means you must have what done? Previously done it. Okay? And of course, it means to re-enter the ion of fleshly inhabitants. Ion, and you get it again in reincarnation, simply means attending the flesh, coming again into the flesh, entering again into the flesh. It pretty much speaks for itself. The thing is there, what is entering again into the flesh? What is redoing what was done? For some, of course, it simply means that the spirit or consciousness has re-entered once again into a fleshly body, if we take it to be what is called physical, corporeal, or mortal bodies. We all know what a body is because that's what you walked up those steps to come here. All right. This is what you use daily to eliminate, to reproduce, what you use daily to cover with clothes. We understand that. But we also know that each of you here, I think, I'm looking around at some of the energy fields that I can see them, will go to sleep tonight and you'll come out of that body. And as I've stated before, if you sleep, you are not just mortal, because you must then activate some energy center to come out of this physical body so that the physical body can repair itself, so that the body or whatever it is that's in it can get re-energized. You can come back into it again and go on about your business. And you'll do that every 3.5 days. Even with drugs, you'll do it every 5 days, or you will sleep standing up, become comatose, and die, which should tell you right off the bat that you must not be physical only, because the real life force within you has to be reanimated. We even have to feed it. We feed the physical. But what are we finding out now? If we don't feed the spiritual, the mental, or whichever you want to call these other consciousnesses, they die. And when they die, soon the physical body dies. When you get tired of living, you will soon die. Sometimes you get diseased first, imbalanced first. When you have a zest for life, you'll fight for life no matter how the physical body is attacked, withered, or cancerized, or whichever again. You'll fight for that life, which lets you know that there is what we call a spirit within you. Now, we like spirit within people. We can identify with that. We can see that this is that person, and we use it in two ways. A person is a very spiritual person, which means, in a sense, religious or metaphysical, has a strong spiritual do's and don'ts, does not need policemen or police force to guide them. And then we say that person has a lot of spirit, which means that person has what? A lot of strength and drive and animation. All of these lets you know at all times that we are not physical, and yet most of our laws on this planet, especially over the last 312,000 years, and especially the last 450 here in America, a misnamed place, America, have tried to stop that kind of a teaching from coming on. It has not been spiritual. It's been more, if you can't hold it, can't grasp it, can't do something with it, it doesn't exist. In fact, there are even physical science classes that started off by saying just that thing. And some stupid things like no two things can occupy the same space at the same time, or body once set in motion tends to stay. I mean, these things are so ludicrous. But at one time, the consciousness of man was so ludicrous that that kind of foolishness could be taught. In the Aquarian age, there's no room for foolishness. So we have to get down to things that may hurt us, some things that may cause us to have a lot of consternation. I hope it does not make you so imbalanced that you become diseased. But we're going to look at that. We're going to look at race, and we're going to look at it from a point of view that's going to be very interesting. And you'll have to decide whether you're very religious or very spiritual, whether you're very much of a faithist or a pace setter, and just how much can you expand consciousness, because like it or not, our planet is expanding consciousness. And if you heard the reports that Melody gave earlier, you know that a lot of things are happening on this planet that can become very disconcerting, if you would. Let's take a look at one of the things that I think we should, to begin give some definitions for words and terms that we use a lot. We've heard the word many times used as soul. I'm simply going to say this to begin with, because in summating all of this, I will get even more into the definition of soul. But soul is sun, a light that shines. It is a soul. And when you say a person has a soul, it means that within them there's a light that shines. We have what we call the animation in the word anima, because there's also a word called transmigration. Transmigration. Transmigration is a belief that after death, the energy field, or the mass of a person, or some call it the soul, will pass on either to an animal or some kind of an animal form. It's called transmigration, a belief that the soul will pass on into an animal body. There's another word that must be addressed, and it is called metempsychosis. Metempsychosis. It's simply taken from two words, One is called meta. I'm sure you know what that means, above or over, again. And infrastring comes from the German, the Gaelic. Again, it's simply referred to as the light or spirit. It means to move from a point. So we're talking about now something metaphysically moving from a point to a point. What means the progression of the soul into a physical, animal body. But tempsychosis means the progression of a soul to another place. It doesn't say where or in what body, but simply into another place. Equally used, I think we should use those three words as part of our vocabulary rather than just saying reincarnation at all times. Reincarnation, coming into a fleshly body. Transmigration, coming into an animal fleshly body. But tempsychosis, moving from one point to another with the soul. All right? People use the term déjà vu, and it's pretty much understood. It's from the French, but of course it's been used so much now that people say déjà vu, feeling like I've been there before, feeling like just experienced this before. But déjà vu is simply when the spirit of an individual addresses so much life force, because it's been built up so much again, that that soul within that spirit, now we've got two different definitions again, is able to recall a soul journey that went on before. It's able to recall through the spirit of a person when it's animated enough that something was done before that the soul can now make an impression upon the spirit and the person remembers. They know in this lifetime, whatever it be, no more usually than 120 years for the best, 70 for many, that that soul or that spirit or that body has experienced something and it's recorded. It's recorded in something we call memory. But memory is not a place that has a pocketbook or a wallet. It's not a place that has a storage vault or so. It's a place nebulously in the brain that slowly plays through. So the brain becomes a vehicle for the mind. And the mind is the seat of memory. So we have constantly playing in brains a record, what some refer to as a cashic, of things that have gone on before, but the only kind of vehicle that can put it down is what is called a brain. We say again that we use very little of the brain. Well, when we look at the brain, we see it's something encased in the skull, that generates energy and gives, again, a vehicle for expression and movement of the physical body. But it does much more. That's why up until the Aquarian age, or the beginning of it, we couldn't use much of that brain, because the other things it was supposed to do, we were not doing. We had been mistaught, miseducated, misled, and we were misconceived in many cases mentally. By the word, again, remember the word conceptions means to what? Conceive mentally. Conception did not mean to conceive of a physical body. The word conception means to conceive mentally. Everything here is being done mentally. Our soul reacts to mental consciousness. And now our brains are going to entrain, expand, whatever you would, to allow some of these other bodies to be used as vehicles of expression outside of the physical. For some, it's going to be a horrendous time. For some, it's going to be a time that's going to scare them to death and literally do so. And for some, it's going to be something that's going to bring you to life because you always knew it was there. You often wondered when they talk about astral projection and all these kind of things and soul slumbers, but now you'll be able to experience it without dying. Although the fear of death may be there, you'll be able to begin to see what your body is capable of and what the mind, when it works to these bodies, is capable of doing. In many cases, the vehicle of expression that we use must be brought through a female body on this planet. That does not seem to be the case in all planets. And it does not seem to be the case for all life forms. Some life forms are not brought forth from a female body, but simply brought from a body which has no name or connotation other than it is different from another type of body. The word feminine and femini means one minus fate. It is a Latin word brought about by the church. It is very degradous. Feminine means, again, faith, incapable of complete and changeable faith. That's what feminine means, again. Masculine is a counterpart of feminine. It means one brought forth from, that has too much faith. It has, again, the ability to become so polarized that it cannot bring out the faith. So both were needed to come together to create a vehicle of expression which could be balanced. Negative, positive, minus, plus. Now, people don't like that either, but I didn't make up the words. I simply studied them. Do the same. You'll find pretty much that you may be in agreement with me. But in these physical bodies, now polarized as a carrier and the other an interpreter or injector, one categorized as a stimulant, the one bringing stimulation into being, we see carried on throughout the universe. For there's negative and positive, there's female and male throughout the universe. It is sex and energy and mental conjugation that brings about everything. But here we limit it to the physical plane. But the soul does not. We have in metaphysics a physical body, etheric body, a spiritual body, a mental body, and a soul. It means that if there is a creator or something intelligent enough to bring it all about, because right now we can't do all of it, although mankind here is trying to do so, hasn't succeeded yet, it means that there must be, therefore, a plane of existence or a planetary existence or somewhere that each of these forces can express itself, or else they would not be created. The logic would be that there are places where the physical body is needed, and we have been calling them in many cases planets. There must be a case where the etheric body, the vehicle that goes between spirit and physical, must exist. And there could be a whole world of planets, therefore, that are etheric, and we might not be able to see, because we are now concentrated on the physical. If there is then a spiritual plane, there might be a whole world or galaxy or universe or whatever of just spiritual beings, not able to be seen by the physical. But what seems to be the course as we understand how the Creator works, as you go up, you can look backwards, but you can only guess upwards when you're on the lowest plane. And if that's the case, then you might also say that there is then a true mental plane, where nothing, a whole galaxy of just mental consciousness, where things that you think are, but only while you are thinking them, and only when thinking them in unison. And then finally, the proverbial consciousness of, is there one source? Is there a creator? Is there something? Though my poor mind can't feature and figure it anyway how that came into being, my soul tells me that that must exist. And so I have to refer to it as prime creator, universal prime creator. But belief in a creator I always have, always will have, for I cannot think of man bringing me into existence. I see what man and mankind does now, and it's so feeble. If this is a unit of expression, I've wasted my time on this planet. So therefore, I must look to there being more. I look forward to being more, but I also come to the postulation and concept that while being on a planet, there must be a reason. And that's what I tried to research, the reason for being on a planet. And does it have to happen again? We have many divisions on this planet, and we have many phylums on this planet. It was said through many of the holy books that man was the supreme being on this planet and was to dominate, subjugate, and control all other life forms. I don't think man was the supreme being on this planet, but I think dominating and subjugating, he's done well. I think he's even created what is called mankind, a kind of creature which was soulless, and using that expression to recreate, other than through the male and female cohabitation, that they actually created things on this planet. I think they're still in a process now through genetic engineering of crossing phylums and mutating things that will cause all kind of chaos on physical planets, and especially this one for time to come, because that soul consciousness tells them they should do it. And since they haven't mastered the soul, they search to be like the soulless or the soulful, the creator. And yet they haven't mastered what they were already given. When we feel a person dying, when it is announced a person has died, and when we go to the obsequies, we go to the obituaries, we go to the funerals and so, people go through a lot of mourning and tears, and I probably will do so also, because we're losing for a while contact with the person that was with us on the physical plane. But yet, each and every night, we lose contact with the person that was with us on the physical plane. And many of us are able to that journey find out more things about ourselves and about that person than we had before. The teaching was that any person whose body you come through, and especially when it comes to with the necessity of a male and female, was because you had previous contact with that person and you needed that area of expression to get things either right, wrong, or corrected. That you're never born to a soul that you did not have energy with before. The teachings also were that there were certain marks and signs that you could tell this. Our geneticists have told us it's because the sperm and the egg, the ovum and the injector, carry on these DNA and RNA replicants. But then we find, after this creature is born, at the bottom of the genetic pool are what they call dormant DNA. Some have even called it what? Junk DNA. It's junk because the soul has not reached the time of progression where everything that happened before was to be remembered. And also because we had some enemies and some lesser gods who didn't want us to know who we were and what we were capable of, so they made sure that those other RNA strands were broken so the DNA could not connect with it, because we were supposed to be born perfect, living for as long as we wanted to, and making the planet almost one that would be that of a very high-placed atom within the Creator's system. But since we took fault and homage and created what we would call karma, this was denied us. So now they're beginning to do what they should have done before, but they're doing it incorrectly, to awaken the ability of a physical body to not only remember its past lives, but also use the other vehicles of expression while on a physical planet to find out what the whole entire kingdom was, and taking away this journey that we've had to go on in ignorance for a long, long time, far too long than we should have had to. And there are those that fight that are soulless and don't want you to have that privilege because they don't have it. And there are those who have been misconceived and mistaught who go along with it. And right now we have our third battle that will have to be fought, but it will be fought in a very condensed space of time because time is speeding up now. We have what we call soldiers. Let's just take the non-prototypical soldier and leave it to those who fight valiantly and who usually die and kill. For those are people who have released the consciousness of soul and acted only on the physical plane in concert. They had to be deprogrammed, they had to be miseducated, and then they had to be directed. Now I'm varying this by saying soldiers versus those who fight. Some people fight because they think it is the right thing to do, for vengeance or because of inequities or so on like that. But a soldier fights for a country, for a cause, and by direction. Soldiers, therefore, when they were killed or killed people, released before their time souls that were locked in bodies, which meant that any time you have a warring planet or a warring solar system or a system where this goes on, you will have incompleteness and problems. And you have problems on various stratifications. Metaphysics divides our stratifications pretty much, as I stated before, from the physical up to the mental. And on this particular solar system, which needs a sun in order to exist, that soul that it spins around, that little atom of consciousness which gives it direction, they're supposed to learn on each classroom, which is a planet. But while they're learning, what they do either lets them get double promoted, failed, or kicked out of school. The worst thing is to get kicked out of school, period, when you've already stated that you wanted to go to school, when you've already been born into the physical to learn, and then you take away another's life. So once the cycle of war sets in, soldiers who kill create what is called karma. And this karma is then that they can't progress until the person who was the soul that was in that body progresses. And they create what is called a lot of planet-bound souls. In this case, we refer to our planet as Earth. It has had many other names. So now we refer to it as an earth-bound soul. A soul kept out of the classroom, locked out of understanding, having been born to learn and now taken away and shunted back, which is another word that is used, to an area of relearning. That is the earthbound soul. When enough planets, and let's just take this